Okay, so good afternoon. It feels like a conference here. Everybody get enough for lunch today? Okay. Just earlier we were chanting downstairs, and one of the chants that I personally always like very much, it's actually not meant as a chant, it's just a sutta where the Buddha was teaching about 6 principles. About 6 principles how to live together in harmony, or how a community, this could be a monastic community, this can be a family, this can be a workplace, how they come to grow and flourishing. So there are 6 principles that the Buddha spoke about. And I brought the sutta along, then we can try to, first I will use the Buddha's words and then we can discuss together if you like. Okay? So let's have a look at those 6 principles of cordiality. And cordiality, the meaning, I think we can understand, is something similar to harmony. How to live together in peace, in harmony, supporting each other. So it starts out by the Buddha saying, Bhikkhus, there are 6 principles of cordiality that create endearment, or steer to each other and respect. And they conduce to cohesion, so they're conducive to bonding, to being together. These 6 principles. Also they're conducive to non-dispute, to non-arguing, and also to concord and unity. Oh, quite nice, it's quite useful, right? If you imagine a family, you're living in harmony, not quarreling, not arguing the whole day, then non-dispute, cohesion, endearment, respect. Wow, who would not want that? Of course we want that. So what are the 6 things we can do that are conducive, supportive for that? Here the Buddha starts out by saying, he addresses the monks, but of course the principles also apply to everyone. Here, because a monk maintains bodily, verbal, and mental acts of loving kindness, both in public and also in private, towards his spiritual companions. So, acts of loving kindness by body, speech, and mind, both in public and in private. So, what does that refer to? How does one act out of loving kindness physically, by body? Can you think of an example? How to act with loving kindness physically to another person? Maybe if I see somebody carry something heavy, or a heavy table or chair from one place to another, if we see that, we will just go there and support that person. So it would be a physical act of loving kindness. I care for him. So I don't want him to carry this heavy thing alone. Then in this way it would be a physical act of loving kindness. But then how about verbal acts of loving kindness? What would that be? Say again? I heard speech. Well-supported speech. Well-supported, supportive to the person. Maybe if the other person is undergoing some struggle, some difficulties, supporting him with that. Or also being a friend, having time for somebody in difficulties. Exactly. Motivated by loving kindness, by care, by compassion. Then how does one act with mental acts of loving kindness? A mental act of loving kindness, how is that? Like in meditation, right? Kind thoughts to other people. Oh, may you be happy. So a genuine wish for others to be happy, successful, peaceful. This would be mental acts of loving kindness. And of course, body, speech and mind, they're also connected, isn't it? Sometimes we think, oh no, mental not so important, only physical or verbal. I will try just to practice these 2. But then, if the heart is not there, if the mental intention is not loving kind, then also the words will not be appropriate also. It's difficult actually to be just outwardly, physically or verbally kind to another person if inside we don't have that kindness. Somehow it still comes through in our actions, in our words, if we don't have an attitude of friendliness, of kindness to another person. So both bodily, verbal and mental acts of loving kindness. But then also the sutta says both in public and in private. So a public act of loving kindness would be, like earlier, I do something for another person. So you go there, give a hand, do some service. In private would be, the person doesn't even know it. Maybe there's something dirty, and then you just go there and clean up. So the person later might say, oh, it's now clean, interesting. But you never tell him that you did it. You just did it privately, almost secretly. So this would be a private act of loving kindness. We don't do it in order to be recognized or in order to be praised, just for the sake of helping. How nice. So it's not so that after my act of generosity and kindness, I expect my name being written somewhere on the wall or inside a book. Of course, it can also be done, but this probably does not have to be our main motivation for kindness, for generosity. So this would be in private. In public, yes, other people can see and witness. In private would be, let me just help out. Somewhere in the background, nobody might know. It's quite nice sometimes when you see that. So you can imagine when people support each other, both in public, in private, in kind words, kind actions, kind thoughts. The community, or the family, or whatever it is, will be in harmony. Of course it will. So the Buddha says this is one of the factors that leads to endearment, to respect. That's the first one. Okay, what's the second one? Whatever a bhikkhu gains that accords with the Dhamma, which has been righteously obtained, even including the mere contents of his alms bowl, such gains he does not use without sharing, but uses them in common with his virtuous spiritual companions. So, sharing resources. So if a monk gets something nice, maybe an alms round, the monks go in different directions. One goes to a market, other one just walks down a certain street. And then sometimes you get some rice, some fruits, and maybe every now and then one of them gets some cake or some biscuits that the others didn't get. So then, rather than quickly eating in oneself, I hope nobody sees it, one could actually bring it out and spread it out on the table. Whenever wants, please come, please help yourself. So this would be sharing resources. And of course that leads to harmony, to friendship, isn't it? It's almost out in the world also I think the same, right? When people are generous, are kind, they're inviting us for certain activities, and they have something nice to share. Of course that fosters friendship and harmony. Can you think of any situations in your own life where that would be applicable? Sharing resources? In what kind of circumstances are we doing that? Are there any special occasions in the year where we do that? I don't know. In the West, for example, Christmas is a typical time where we give gifts to each other, parents to the children, vice versa, grandparents, and so on. But then in our Chinese calendar, do we have any occasions where we exchange gifts or share resources with each other? Chinese New Year. Really? I didn't know. You exchange gifts or ang bao? Red envelopes. Birthday probably also, right? But then of course we don't have to wait always for these occasions. It doesn't mean during other parts of the years it is unallowable to give something. Of course it is okay, it is very much appreciated, maybe even more so because it's spontaneous. Of course there are official events, okay, it's almost a ritual, a tradition. But if somebody comes out of season, really unexpectedly, I have something for you. I was just in town, I was passing that shop, I thought of you. Why don't I get you something? This is very kind, isn't it? This spontaneous kindness giving gifts at unexpected situations. So of course that fosters friendship, harmony, a sense of belonging, togetherness. Also, I know from back in the days, men are also very good when they have screwed up a little bit in their marriage life, and then they come back with a bush of flowers or giving a gift. But then again, we don't have to wait always when you're screwed up, only then you come with a gift. Otherwise the person is afraid already, you know. When you see him coming with flowers again, what did you do? So yeah, it's good if it also sometimes comes just out of kindness, generosity, mutual appreciation. But that's the second factor that leads to endearment, harmony, and so on. Then number 3, the Buddha says, a bhikkhu dwells, possessing the virtues that are unbroken, unadorned, unblotched, unmodeled, and liberating. The virtues that are commended by the wise, not misapprehended, and conducive to concentration, to composure. Endowed with such virtues, one dwells, both in public and in private again, towards his spiritual companions. So here it's about sila, having virtue, ethical standards, and one keeps them unbroken, one maintains them for long periods. What is the basic sila of a devotee? What kind of virtues would we have in mind here? To abstain from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, intoxicants. Yeah, that's a pretty good start already. So imagining you have a good friend or family member and that person really strongly maintains a very high level of virtue in these areas. You know, you can leave a wallet on the table, go out, come back 3 hours later, you're not counting now, yeah? Is still everything there or not? There's a sense of safety, a sense of trust. Well, also, even if something does not go right, maybe there's a bit of an argument, you don't have to be afraid that the person might become violent. No, no reason for that. And no, he maintains his virtue. He's a non-cruel person, doesn't give a blow to others, doesn't indulge in violence. So in this way, of course, that leads to harmony. So if there's a shared standard, a shared mutual practice of virtue, that conduces to cohesion, to likability, to harmlessness, of course. Both in public and in private. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to know what does it mean public and private in certain contexts. How is it with virtue? How does one in public abstain from killing, stealing? Yeah, don't know. Stealing is rarely done in public, right? But yeah, physical harmfulness, that is something we can sometimes witness in some extreme occasions. But even in private, some people are very good. In public, they are very almost holy people, you know. You would never think that a person could do anything harmful, cruel to another person. But then in private, when nobody looks, it can be quite a different situation. So regardless of whether somebody sees it or not, maintaining our virtues and high standards in terms of sila for a long time, that is the best case scenario. I remember back in Taiping a couple of months ago, there was a very nice elderly couple coming in the morning to Dims for the Dhamma talk. So they were listening there. And after the Dhamma talk was finished, most people were going back already. The woman came and she asked some questions. So we had a bit of a Dhamma conversation there. And then her husband also was somewhere in the distance. And so towards the end of the conversation, she was a very soft, very kind lady. And then at the end of the conversation, she turned over to her husband. Hey, come, get the car. We are driving, we are going. Come, quickly. I I couldn't believe my eyes. This tender, soft woman, how can she be? I never would have thought she would talk with anyone like this. Before that, she was, oh, Bhante, I have a question. Is it like this and like this? Very, very soft-spoken, very kind, very gentle. But then when she turns to her husband, it's like furious. So I said, wow, amazing. So here about virtue, kindness, politeness, not only external but also internal, not only towards strangers, but also towards family, towards close friends. Okay, many people are very good, even on the workplace, they're very friendly, very kind, but then you get home, scold everyone around, the children, spouse. So again, to maintain that also, because these are the people that count the most, isn't it? These are the people we spend so many hours together with. People on the workplace, okay, you see them for a few hours, and then you don't see them anymore. But with our family, we have to live not just for a few days, a few weeks, a few months, for years. So how much more important is it to have good relationships with those of us who are the dearest, the closest to us? Of course it is. So it should be the opposite, if already there has to be some distinction, that we are even more careful, more kind to our family members compared to just strangers. So again, we can imagine a person upholding high ethical standards, virtue, right speech towards his friends, family members, spiritual friends. Yes, that of course leads to endearment, respect, and so on. Did you encounter any examples in your own life where people sometimes outwardly are very kind, and then later when you get to know them a bit better, it seems to be quite different? Do you have that sometimes in your life? On the workplace, I guess, can happen. Or even sometimes when people come for a job interview, it's so tricky. So people come for a job interview, wow, this is the perfect candidate. It's kind, knowledgeable, a lot of experience from the past. Okay, and the person starts working for a while, and then you see, actually, quite a lazy one, and sometimes also not kind with the co-workers. So it takes some time actually to get to know a person. So we should not be too quickly to jump to conclusions just based on external appearances or a short glimpse, just a moment. Most people, we have learned to be very kind and courteous when we have to, when it's important, when I need a job, of course. But to maintain that, both in the workplace, at home, any situation, this is more skill required, of course. Next one. A bhikkhu dwells possessing a view, a ditti. He dwells possessing a view that is noble and emancipating. Acting it out leads to the complete destruction of suffering. Endowed with such a view, he dwells, both in public and in private, towards his spiritual companions. So here it refers to right view, particularly the view of the Four Noble Truths. So the view about suffering, what is the cause for suffering, release from suffering, and the path leading there. So they have a shared view, a shared understanding in this regard. So you can imagine in a community where everyone has a different perspective of what is right view, what is the right practice, what is the meaning of samadhi, or mindfulness. Everybody have their own ideas. There might be, after a while, a lot of arguments and debates going on. It doesn't mean there can never be a disagreement. But then if there's completely no common standard, no shared understanding, that will make it quite difficult to live together in harmony. Whereas if there's a common basis, a shared view, we're all going in the same direction. And I would think the same is the case in family life, right? If we all have similar goals, a shared understanding of both the past and the future, similar values, that helps, of course, to feel united and feel we belong together. Of of course, these kind of things also we cannot just enforce. We cannot say, well, now this is supposed to be your view. So there also we have to give time and also speak with each other. It is often by communication that people get to a shared understanding. Whereas if we don't talk with each other, oh yeah, this perspective makes sense in my own mind, and then the other one has also his perspective in his own mind. The Buddha also has his perspective. So yeah, there's no shared core. That's why also, for example, in our monastic community, we read the suttas together. We read them together, sometimes we stop, we discuss a few points, and then we continue reading. So basically, we all take the Buddha as our source, as our main source. And doing that, not just for a day or two, but doing this over weeks and months, or maybe even years, there comes a shared understanding of the Dhamma. Even though people come from different places. Some might have ordained in Burma, some have ordained in Thailand, others in Sri Lanka, or at SBS. But then, yeah, people might come with very different perspectives in some areas. But then by practicing together and listening to the Dhamma together, reading together, discussing it together, after a while, actually the views become quite uniform, quite similar to each other. Because we all take the Buddha as our main inspiration, and then after a while our individual ideas that we first thought, this is the Buddha's teaching, surely, or that, it gets auto-corrected. Sometimes we don't even notice it, how some of our views or attitudes change a little bit in a very gradual manner. Nobody has to come and say, now you need to change your view. It's just by hearing the Buddha again and again, it kind of informs our understanding. So likewise, any community, any society, where there's a shared understanding of the goals, shared attitudes, shared views, of course, that leads to cohesion, to mutual support, and so on. How many do we have already? How many factors? Anyone kept counting? 5? Let's see whether we have one more. No. It's supposed to be finished already 6. Did we skip one? Okay, let's recap. Okay, you recap and then I check whether it's correct. What was the first one that you mentioned? Huh? Yeah. Bodily, verbal and mental acts of loving kindness. That was the first one. What was the second one? Sharing resources, right? Whatever Bhikkhu gains that accords with the Dhamma, even including the contents of his bowl, even those things he shares with others. So that was number 2. Number 3? Huh? Sila, virtue, shared virtues. Number 4? Number 4? View. No, the lives on the earth can be after virtue, but here it says, it goes straight to view. Something missing in my chanting here. Something missing in my chanting book. I would have to look that up in the original. Let me see whether I can access that. It's meant to be in Majjhima Nikaya 46. You can find the same list. Let me see whether we can find that. Followable truth. A bit difficult to find so fast. So okay, stay tuned. We covered 4. Next weekend you come back again. Out of these that we have covered so far, which one do you find the most relevant in your own life? Or which one do you think has a high potential of leading to harmony, to cohesion in the family life or the work life? Which of among those? Is it more the view or the virtue or the sharing of resources? What would you say? The loving kindness. Yeah, I also think. How many of us are following loving kindness? The others have no loving kindness. Huh? Of course, virtue also important, right? Because it doesn't matter how loving kind somebody says he is, but then if they steal from you, or betray you, or in a relationship not faithful, partner relationships, of course you can say, oh, but I have so much loving kindness for you. But yeah, but it seems you also have a lot of loving kindness for the other girl. So that is then not so helpful. Exactly. So we can see here from these examples that the Buddha's teachings, even so, how old are they? 2,000 years, 2,500 years and more. But they're still very relevant. If we were to incorporate those principles in our own lives, and just imagine, not just us privately, but families, politicians, whole nations living according to these principles, how different the world would look like. But of course, we cannot expect from one day to another everyone to change how they act. But in our small circles, within our own little sphere of influence, there we can make a difference. And sometimes we don't even have to tell people, okay, these are now the 6 principles or the 4 principles of non-decline. We don't even have to mention that. Sometimes just being a good example, a good role model. Some people might follow, might emulate. Or at the right occasion, also we can share and introduce a close friend, a family member. Why don't we take this up? Why don't we practice together according to some of these principles? Even if just 1 or 2 of these principles are applied, even that makes a difference. And I've personally seen families where, were okay, but where basically after listening to Dhamma talks or regularly coming, listening to the Dhamma, Buddha's teachings, that their relationships within the family have improved dramatically. No magic has happened, other than every individual trying to be a better person on our own. We don't have to teach others or train others so much. It's about transforming ourselves and seeing the value. Oh yes, I would like to be a person who lives according to these principles. Then if multiple people are doing that, that's good enough. Maybe not everyone. It's not necessary actually. If you have a group of 10 people and 7, 8 follow these principles, the others are coming along for the ride whether they want it or not. So that's fine. So I'm always astonished and impressed by the power of the Dhamma that after so many years still helps to transform people. In our monasteries, back in SBS for example, I often have the opportunity to witness that very easily. When people come, not monks necessarily, yogis come to our monastery, they're thinking about becoming monk in the future. So then they stay for a while with the Sangha, practice with us, and then eventually we ordain them. And then he trains for a while, meditates, follows the Buddha's teachings for a year, 2 years. And then previously I stayed also at other monasteries, of course, and then sometimes I would move on to a different place. And then a few years later I come back to the same monastery and I meet some of my old friends, or those whom I know from last time. And then sometimes I meet the same people whom I know from the very early stage when they were still a layperson, became a monk, and now he's a monk with 3 vasa or something like that. Oh, it's almost like a different person. Amazing how, of course, certain core qualities remain, but then many of the views, perspectives, maturity, loving kindness, composure, I can see that so much has changed. And this is very inspiring to see. And often it's actually easier to see in others than in ourselves even, because we see ourselves every day. You always visit yourself, right? So day after day, yes, there is also change happening, but it's much more slow and gradual. So sometimes it's difficult to see progress in ourselves. But then if you don't see a person for a year, for 2 years, and that person has really been working on himself, and then you meet the person again, wow, I can see the difference very clearly. So this is also very inspiring, very uplifting, when we can see, wow, the Dhamma is still working, it is transforming us. to the better, of course. So this is also an invitation to all of you to use the Dhamma in that very way, and particularly these principles of non-decline and the principles of cordiality, to implement them in our own lives, whether it's a family life, workplace, or in spiritual circles. We keep it at that for the day. Are there any questions, either related to what we just discussed or unrelated? We still have maybe 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes if required. Any Dhamma-related points or meditation-related points that we could discuss? Yeah, you can just pass the microphone.
Sadhu Bhante, thank you very much for the very informative and inspiring and insightful Dhamma talk. I was just Googling about the Saraniya Sutta, which is this sutta, I believe, sutta conducive to equanimity. So the first point that Bhante mentioned is actually considered 3 points. So mental, verbal, and bodily acts of loving kindness, according to the sutta, is 3 separate paragraphs, if I'm not mistaken.
Very good. Yeah, that explains it. So we had 4, right? But the first one was split into 3, bodily, verbal, and mental. Correct. So 2 we missed out. Actually, we covered them, so altogether makes 6.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
This is the Anguttara Nikaya 6.12.
Yes. Okay, well, the mystery is solved. Our chanting book is correct after all. I'm quite happy to hear, otherwise we'd have to re-record that chant because we recorded it already. So it's already. And actually, later when we publish that chant, it's actually quite nice to chant it together in Pali and English. So we do, like the Pali of the first line would be Jaime Bhikkhave Dhamma Saraniya. Because there are these 6 principles of non-decline, Piya Karana, Garu Karana, that create endearment and respect. And then we just continue like that. So it's always a line of Pali and a line of English. Because I don't know how many of us are Pali scholars. Raise your hand. So if you only hear the Pali, it would be nice to understand also what it means, isn't it? So that's why I really like that style of Pali and English recitation. And then over time, if you chant it regularly or even start to memorize it, you also build a little bit of Pali vocabulary. But it's not just words from a dictionary, where random words, no meaningful sequence, but already in a proper context, in a Dhamma context. So this way we learn 2 things at the same time. One is the Dhamma, of course, but then also a little bit getting a feeling for the Pali language. So it's a very nice way of learning the Dhamma in this way. And also because the Pali is still there, it's very close to the Buddha's own language, or how the Buddha may have said it, or something similar to that. Any other comments? Yes? Yeah, can you pass the microphone?
Thank you, Bhante, for the sharing. For us, I think loving kindness is something that we really practice a lot. In fact, from young, we've actually been exposed to a lot of animals, nature. We've been very been in touch with nature. And recently, we actually I think a few months ago, we actually adopted 2 cats who we found, we are fostering them. Adopted as in the mother used to actually bring the cats to our house, but the mother actually passed away. So we kind of became the parents of those 2 cats. But what we've realized and noticed recently as they grew up is that they really want to explore, because we have a garden in the house. There's a big problem that we aren't able to let them out. We used to, but then we realized that they actually want to travel out of the house. In fact, a few times they escaped from the house and they want to go to the main road, which is actually very dangerous because there's a lot of cars that are traveling there. So we kind of have to really restrict and control their movement. And we don't know whether this is a good way to, whether it's good that we interfere in a cat's life to that extent, because we care for them, but we are worried that they also want that freedom that, you know, usually these kind of animals have. So that's kind of the dilemma that we are in.
Yeah, welcome. And you know, having the same dilemma as every mother or parents have with their children. In other words, how much freedom should they give? Is good to give. Should they keep them very tight and just imprison them at home? It's very safe. But is this the best way for them to become mature people, or cats in this case? And also, so where is the right balance there to find? So on the one side we want to protect, on the other side also we want them to flourish and make their own experiences and also don't feel imprisoned all day. And there might not be one answer, this is the right distance for them to go, or this is the right amount of time. But it is good to see how these animals, in this case, these cats, how would they usually live out in the world? And do they have natural predators, or do they have situations where they have to escape from fast-moving objects? Probably yes. Out in nature, when cats are domesticated forms of tigers, something similar to that, like a wild cat. And oh yeah, they're quite capable of jumping, running fast, cutting a corner when a danger comes. Generally, they are well equipped to do that. But of course, cars are moving very fast, and they're also very hard. So if a car hits you, it's different from, I don't know, some grass or a branch from a tree a little bit, an overhanging soft branch. So again, as you said correctly already, where's the right balance? Now in terms of wholesomeness, it's clear your intention is to protect. So even if the person decides, no, we don't let them out at all, it's just too dangerous out there, again, it's not unwholesome to do that. Yet at the same time, we might limit somehow the freedom for the cat to play, to explore, and to become a kind of self-reliant being out there in the world. But then I don't know whether it's the goal, because often cats, they are raised, often in cities, cats, I think, as you know, they keep them their whole life in their apartment in some cases. So I guess the cats can survive in that way. Is it their first preference? Probably not. So again, I guess there are trade-offs, but then also for us good to know, I mean, okay, it came into your life, at some point it will go out of your life again. So to what degree can it prevent that natural cycle from happening? I don't think that cats running around freely, I don't think it's so dangerous that sure she will die. Or sure 99% of cats that are not kept in the apartment, they're going to die on the traffic. Is it like that? No. I don't know, what do you think, how many out of 100 cats, how many cats would die prematurely in the traffic? 5? 3? 50? No. 50? No. So yeah, so you can then run the numbers yourself. Maybe ask a few friends what they think how high is the chance of survival. But yeah, if you already know there's a lot of traffic in front of your house, and the cats also can see the traffic, I assume, right? It's not that they cannot see that there's traffic happening. So yeah, it's an individual choice, and the wholesome intention to protect is a wholesome intention. And then we try to balance it, not to be overprotective. We do need to let others also have some freedoms to live their lives, to make their own mistakes even. As parents also, often we face that, right, where you know, oh, okay, that is dangerous what you're doing here. But you cannot, if there's a boy who wants to climb up a tree, well, if you always say, no, you can't go through this, can't do that, can't do that. As they grow up, often they become very timid or very frightened young adults, because they've never explored things and everything is dangerous to them, or they don't have the tools to navigate those areas skillfully because they never had those challenges to face. So if you're overprotective, you make them very dependent on us, on others, so which is also not ideal for their self-confidence and for their just well-being. So again, some kind of balance needs to be found, I guess. Okay.
Okay, yes, thank you so much for that. I just have one more follow-up question, and it's a bit about the karma of some of the actions, because, okay, so just for a bit more context, the cats are like, I would say they're a few months old, but in cat years, about like 2 to 3 years old. 2 months old for the amount of time we've been raising them. So they are basically like kittens. The issue is that they have let's just say there's a lot of fleas, and we actually have to sometimes kill them, but we don't know what's the karma implications of it, because we do want to protect the cats, but there's not much we can do about the fleas.
I mean, because also we, as a family, practice the 5 precepts. We practice the first precept. We don't want to kill any living beings, even ants. We always try to blow them away. But in this scenario, because with fleas, you can't exactly just remove them and put them somewhere else. Like you have to actually kill them. You have to trap them in you have to drop them in water. So which is a bit not the best.
Yeah. It's a challenge with fleas and these kind of smaller pests, how to deal with them. Fleas, if you can catch them, could you not put them, for example, in a small plastic container, and then next time when you drive somewhere with the bus, you release them in the bus or somewhere else? Maybe not inside the bus. Or secretly put it into someone's coat.
Excuse me, Bhante. Actually, the fleas, they need to suck blood to survive. So once we remove them, it's very difficult to remove also anyway because they're very fast. So once we take out them, they will die already.
I think fleas, once you release them, they will find another host, because the cat also somehow got its fleas. So the fleas will look around and find their future host. You don't have to provide food for the fleas for the rest of their lifetime, providing some bottle of blood. So this is your portion. It's not necessary. I think by releasing them, they will find their ways. So we are so used to cater and pamper our pets that we cannot even imagine anymore that they can survive without us. I think just not killing them is good enough. You don't have to provide them breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the next 2 months. So if you can catch them, remove them one by one, and put them in a small box, and then release them at a distant place, somewhere in nature, I guess that would be doable. Of course, it is a bit more work than putting some chemical. I don't know how. Does one remove the fleas from the cat one by one, or is there kind of shampoo that one applies? But that would kill the fleas most likely, right? So if there's a method of removing them, or using a method where the fleas themselves want to go, that would be better. Sometimes also monks face a similar situation, not with fleas so much because we are shaven, but sometimes when we eat food that is maybe not 100% clean, especially in maybe third world countries, in Burma or somewhere, where the food is not clean, and then it can also be that you get intestinal worms. And then what to do with those worms? So there's anti-worm medicine, but you also know if you take that will kill the worms. But then it's also not fun to keep the worms in your body. It turns out actually papaya seeds are really good in terms of just saying, well, depending on how old you are, according to your age, if you're 50 years old, you should eat 50 papaya seeds. No, it's okay. They're not too bad to eat. And then basically, but they don't kill the worms, but they create a milieu. They create an environment in your intestines that will encourage the worms to go out. They don't like it there anymore. But it doesn't kill them. So then next time you go to the bathroom, they come out just together with the rest of the excrement. So in this way, there's a way of getting rid of them without killing them. So something along these lines would be helpful if there is some kind of shampoo where they don't want to be there, or where you can wash them away, but without killing them. That would be the best case scenario. So these are the ethical dilemmas that you do face sometimes in real life, with these small pests and yeah. Yeah. Okay, any last comment, question? If not, I would say we commence with our sharing of merit, where we invite our departed relatives and friends to rejoice in all the good karma we've accumulated. The good karma accumulated by offering of food, listening to the Dhamma, discussing the Dhamma, sharing the Dhamma. All of that we invite our departed relatives and friends to rejoice. Let us recite together. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang no nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang wo nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Etta vata jamhi sampadang punya sampadang sabbi satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. And lastly, let us also make an aspiration so that all the good karma we've accumulated will also support us on the path to liberation towards Nibbana. Please repeat after me. Idang me punyang asavakaya vahang hotu. Idang me punyang nibbanassa paccaya hotu. Sadhu sadhu.